to talk about the different cryptocurrencies that we're invested in, how we went about picking them, why we picked them, and what we're expecting from them. And then we can get into some details. So, Bilal, why don't you start out sharing with us some of those thoughts?
Yeah, so Larry, it's an exciting time to be in cryptocurrency. The last year has weeded out a lot of the bad projects and made it easier for us to pick um, from a sample of better products left behind. So we're able to pick. We've got a better chance of picking quality in the cryptos that we're looking at. But that said, actually, a lot of the projects that we're in our crypto universe are still standing and still alive, although the value of the token may have actually dropped. The many of not all, but many of the projects are still viable. So to the exciting part of what are the big themes that we like in the cryptocurrency space that we're investing for, not for the next week or so, but for the next few years. Because remember, we are not traders, we're investors, and we're picking up on long themes that are going to have value over the long term. And the three main themes we're looking at are Bitcoin versus Ethereum, the digital gold versus digital oil. The second theme being the DeFi space, and how the DeFi space unfolds. Which projects are the outliers and the leaders in the DeFi space. And then the third major theme is central bank digital currencies, and how these are being adopted by various governments, and even some uh, intergovernmental bodies starting to talk about these. Um, Besides the central bank digital currencies, and in that third theme, there's also the possibility of gold-backed currencies, or asset-backed currencies that are also written in a smart contract, which is a theme we're also seeing play out. So those are the three main themes. So I'll just touch on it from a high level, and then Graham can maybe give us the detail in terms of which projects we're actually looking at within these themes.
All
So
right.
the
Well,
first one,
can you also, in your explanation, only because it's just come up, to the extent you understand it and know about it, what Russia was talking about in terms of creating a coin and the gold? You're familiar with what I'm talking about?
yeah.
Okay. All right, go
Yes.
on.
Okay. So let me answer that one, and then I'll come back to the theme. So there was an article last week published on a website called centralbanking.com, and then it's been reported in a few other crypto news articles, that Russia and Iran are in talks. So they're in discussion. So it's very, very early stage rumor information. That these two countries are in talks to build a gold-backed crypto. Now, it's not new news, because I mean this has been talked about for a long time, and actually, it actually makes sense for the world to have a global currency backed by gold. That why is Starlink charging in whichever currency? Starlink is a global business. It could be charging in a global currency. And the internet's not country specific, it's global. And so I think this is probably where Elon Musk's mind is, where we need to start thinking of what's Earth's currency and what's Mars's currency, so we can transact between planets here. And if we're getting to that point, which is not tomorrow, but maybe in a decade or two, but it will lean towards a borderless currency, and that possibly, I mean, whatever, 10% probability. I don't know what probability we put on it, but we just talking about possibilities here, and the possibility is that the world used to work on a gold standard. The dollar was on the Bretton Woods standard, and money was gold, and paper was issued as a proxy of the gold that was sitting in the Reserve Bank. That's what money used to be. And at some point, I think Nixon moved us off the gold standard, and we then ended up on a credit standard where money is actually debt, and that system is what we're currently in, and there are questions around the viability of that system. And it the bulk of the world, who is not America or the Western world, do not benefit from that system, and they actually control the resources and commodities in the rest of the world. So as long as we don't have a world war where this becomes one of those issues that are a an ulterior motive for a different war. This could be a good thing which rebalances power between various currencies, various countries, and it ends up being the world moving back to gold as a means of transacting, and cryptocurrency allowing us to go to the eighth decimal place of a unit of um, a contract. So we could get really, really small pieces of gold and be able to transact in it. And it doesn't have to be gold. It could be silver. It could be something else. I don't know. But what I'm saying is the technology now exists for for there to be an asset-backed cryptocurrency that we could trade around quite fast. Again, I mean, this is way above my pay grade in terms of political control structures, the liquidity of the petrodollar, and knock-on effects of what all of that does. I mean, it's a complete change in how governments are funded and the debt system. So anyway, so that's an off-piste um, theory in terms of where currencies could be going, but it's not impossible. And I would say every day it becomes more possible. And in the last few months, the sanctions on, for example, Russia uh, would would scare a lot of countries into wanting to have this alternative currency that cannot be sanctioned. Um, Purely because some countries may perceive sanctions to be um, a a US determined policy against their Russian or Chinese or Indian or South African or Brazilian or whatever issue.
Would, just talking about this, would a gold backed Bitcoin, right? Would that add all this tremendous stability to the price of Bitcoin? And also at the same time, what would it do to Bitcoin's potential growth? Would it supercharge it, or would it just leave it, since it's tied to gold, just pretty much whatever gold did, it did, and that's it? It would take away this, potential for Bitcoin to be 200, 300, 500,000 a Bitcoin.
Yeah. So Larry, that scenario would be a competitor of Bitcoin because Bitcoin is in itself digital gold, but it has
Right?
nothing to do with gold, right? It's perceived to be digital gold. What I'm talking about here is actual gold wrapped in probably an Ethereum token. And
Ah,
this actually exists. You can buy wrapped gold already. This what I'm saying already exists, and it's just not widely used or adopted by any central bank or any it's not really a means of exchange right now. But this already exists. Wrapped gold is is a is an Ethereum contract. Now, if you think about it, it's like Ethereum's like the paper, right? Ethereum's like the paper on which that pre-Nixon Bretton Woods standard dollar is printed on Ethereum paper that's telling you that the gold's in the reserve. So the more of that type of transaction that happens, the more of the Ethereum paper you actually need and use, and so it will help Ethereum and more transactions that are going to happen in the Ethereum ecosystem. Um, so that's more bullish for Ethereum. So and I guess that touches on two of our main themes. So the one is the stablecoin theme, and then the other theme, the first theme is the Bitcoin Ethereum theme. And whilst we remain bullish on Bitcoin, we believe Ethereum could have the potential to outperform Bitcoin in the short term. So in maybe over the next 12 to 24 months, but also over the long term, because where Bitcoin is digital gold, Ethereum is digital oil, right? And if you look at Web3
Explain
and the
that
internet and
difference.
go
Can you
ahead.
explain? Can you explain just for those viewers, digital gold, digital oil? How do you mean that so we can understand?
Cool. So Bitcoin being digital gold is the digital store of value, right? Which like gold, you save for a rainy day to hedge against inflation and to hedge against volatility, the anti-risk, and many Bitcoin hodlers are actually holding Bitcoin as a hedge against the US dollar or whatever currency that they live in. So that's digital gold. Ethereum is actually a a an ecosystem in which you can program other functions and actually do things with it. So the DeFi theme, which is our second theme, is largely built on the Ethereum network. So you can actually do more with Ethereum than you can do with Bitcoin, and we call it the digital oil because, like oil is burnt in cars and planes and trucks to do things and move things. So we call Ethereum the digital oil because you use more of it, and digital gold being Bitcoin because you actually just hold it as a store of value. Now I'm not speaking, um, you know. Black and white. I mean, this Bitcoin also has the ability to do more, and there are upgrades and projects that are trying to work with Bitcoin to enhance other features for what you could do with Bitcoin. But just largely speaking, Bitcoin is the digital gold, and Ethereum is digital oil. So, so the first theme is I mean, it's the nickname for it is the flippening, and I'm going to leave it to Graham to go into more detail around what the flippening is actually about, and how we see that playing out, and where it where it when it actually plays out. The second theme being the DeFi theme is all about working without intermediaries. So we have GMX, Uniswap, so all the decentralized exchanges. So remember, FTX blew up, and that was because of Sam Bankman-Fried and fraud and bad actors. You don't actually need that in crypto. That was an extra arm that we only needed two arms. FTX was a third arm that we never really needed. So the crypto ecosystem can function completely fine without FTX, and we can trade cryptos on GMX or Uniswap, which sit on the Ethereum network, and that's an example of where Ethereum is functioning as digital oil. Um, and there are massive opportunities in that space.
Would I say, if I were in a neophyte way, to understand that while Bitcoin is its own coin, Ethereum is not only its own coin, but it's a platform of which other companies build their business structure on, and that's where their coin also comes to life separately, but it needs the Ethereum platform to launch its coin, whereas Bitcoin cannot do that for any other business or any other coin. Would that be
Yes, that's
correct?
largely correct. Yeah. So
Okay.
just in general terms, that's exactly right. And then yeah, the third theme about the central bank digital currencies are just yeah, it's using the Ripple network and the XRP token or quantum to create the central bank digital currencies. Again, these things are not all the same. So Bitcoin maximalists believe in Bitcoin, right? And they're anti-Ethereum, right? Whereas an Ethereum would be uh, a functional token, and then you have central bank digital currencies, which are actually perceived to create more control, whilst Bitcoin is supposed to liberate control. So these are all opposing forces, and we're not picking a side, and we're not betting on who's going to win. We're just looking at the tech, and we are buying. If you want, we don't know what the fashion is. We don't know if jeans are going to be the thing, or jackets, or handbags. But we know they're all being made out of denim. So what we're doing is we're focusing on the denim. So whichever the fashion of the day is, we are investing into the various underlying technologies which promote um, any of the three themes we see being the major themes. But let me hand over to Graham to give us a bit more detail on these three themes.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Bilal. Um, yeah, look, I mean, just to maybe build on the Ethereum versus Bitcoin in the next market cycle. I mean, I'm not necessarily bearish on Bitcoin, but I just think in terms of what we expect is, I would say, I strongly feel that we're going to see an outperformance of Bitcoin versus Ethereum, and potentially a flippening event. So the flippening is the nickname for the event where Ethereum potentially exceeds the market cap of Bitcoin. And yeah, I think a lot of the previous bull market, we saw a lot of uh, traditional investors and institutions almost embrace the digital gold ethos of Bitcoin, the store of value narrative. And that was obviously very successful in bringing a lot of institutions to the table. DeFi also obviously had its time in the sun, and we saw tremendous development there. But I think the next bull market, I expect that the market sees greater value in utility rather than store of value. And obviously, Ethereum is where your utility and the various projects that operate on top of Ethereum bring actual utility and actual real use case to various participants that are going to be involved in this ecosystem.
Grant,
Whereas, yeah.
Grant, as you're talking about that, can you also, in your explanation, since I know you love Ethereum, I also know that Solana is similar to Ethereum, but can you point out what is the difference? Because Solana, I understood, was faster and cheaper, but
Yeah.
yet we believe that Ethereum's got this greatest upside. What's the why? What's the reason and the difference? If you could share.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, Ethereum has always been almost dogged by the market and its or the narrative around an Ethereum killer. So it was always almost this thought that there's an Ethereum killer around the corner. And in 2017, it was EOS and Neo and a couple others. And in this last market cycle, it was the Solana and the Binance Smart Chain and the Cardano. So, and look, in my view, Ethereum has really come out and emerged as the winner after this last cycle. It just continues to grow in adoption and credibility compared to the competitors, in my view. One of the major criticisms around Ethereum is its ability to scale, and obviously the costs involved with transacting directly on the network. That in many ways has been solved by what we call the layer 2 solutions. So we call Ethereum a layer 1, and then you've got a layer 2, which is a complementary blockchain working with the layer 1 to offer a more scalable, lower cost transactions. And how it does that is that it collects transactions in bulk on that blockchain and then takes it in bulk across and settles it on Ethereum in a less frequent fashion than participating on Ethereum directly all the time, where every transaction is recorded as a separate transaction. When you work on a layer 2, those transactions are bulked, but then you still have your security in the background in the form of Ethereum as your most reputable transactional blockchain to capture those transactions. So I think a lot of those problems were solved and are continuing to be solved around Ethereum, which is, and now we see other different products and services being brought to market, which are now usable, and they're nice and responsive as a user. They're very cheap to use because you're now using the layer 2 solution as opposed to directly using the layer 1.
Do Solano and Cardano, do they still have a place, just like all the different computer companies? Well, Apple may be number one, Samsung and two others. So do these other two, do they still have a place in the future?
Look, it's possible. I think it's very unlikely. In my view, Ethereum has got a big advantage in terms of its development roadmap, and it's also got just a much more powerful base of developers supporting it. And I think that really is the power behind Ethereum. And I think what a lot of these alternative layer 1 blockchains will do is, if they come up with a great idea or solution, it can be very easily be integrated into Ethereum through their different updates. And we've seen that come in. So Ethereum is really well positioned to almost cannibalize other good ideas and solutions that are brought out by the different more exploratory or experimental blockchains.
But Ethereum could never, so to speak, if you don't think Solana and Cardano have a future, even as a second and third tier place, which I don't know if that's what you're saying, but am I correct in understanding that an Ethereum wouldn't need to consolidate or roll up or acquire either of the users or developers of those other two sites? They're just going to come over automatically. So there's no longer these growth by acquisition. Is that correct, or am I not correct?
Yeah, so I don't think that other investments into L1s is completely off the table. Personally, and I think most of our investment committee will support this, is that we're not very big fans of the technology of Solana in particular. I think it's been painted with a very bad brush, obviously because of the FTX association. Cardano continues to underdeliver time and time again. So we still wait to see if anything of value will come out of Cardano. And obviously Charles Hoskinson talks a big game, but I think it's fair to say that they've delivered very little in usable technology. If I can throw out 2 or 3 other names that we do like, Atom or Cosmos has a unique proposition for the way that they deal with blockchains. So they spin up almost different blockchains that are with different purposes or characteristics for specific uses. So they've got a very innovative way of doing things. Polkadot is a little bit similar in that way, where they've got almost various subchains for specific uses. So I think those are definitely more interesting than a Cardano or a Solana. And the last one I'll throw in there is Avalanche, or AVAX is the ticker. I think that there's some potential upside, especially in terms of valuation. I think it's been very suppressed during this last bull market. So that's a more tactical trade I think we could look at. Fundamentally, will it win out against Ethereum in the long term? I don't think so. But if we do move into more bullish market conditions, those are 3 L1s that I would potentially look at allocating.
Well, if I may just jump in for a second, Larry, just to stay on the subject with Ethereum. So to you, Graham, I mean, with our allocation within our fund, are we saying that we're going to have a sort of an equal exposure between Bitcoin and Ethereum, or would you say Ethereum in time will be our major holding?
Yeah, so this has actually been a bit of a fierce debate within our investment committee. Currently within our portfolio construction, we allow for a 1-to-1 exposure of Ethereum versus Bitcoin in our portfolio. That would be our most bullish position that we would take, given the fact that Bitcoin still is more than double the market cap of Ethereum. So in my view, if we're measuring ourselves against the market index, we would be very overweight Ethereum at a 1-to-1 relationship. We've got some really strong tech guys within the group who are driving the Ethereum narrative very hard and are pushing to increase that beyond a 1-to-1 allocation. So look, we'll update you once we have an outcome to our discussions. And this is fun, part of this industry is that things are always changing, and the rules constantly need to be reviewed and put up for discussion because they can become very old quite quickly. So yeah, we're always looking to bring on new information as the industry changes. But yes, I think it's safe to say that we're looking for a nice, healthy allocation to Ethereum ahead of the next bull market.
Great. Okay, guys. Well, I think that that covers today. Unless anybody else wants to add anything else, I understand where we're positioned, how we're viewing the different coins, etc. Is there any coin or coins that we have right this minute absolutely no exposure to, but if something happens that we're looking at comes about, then we may take a position? Is there anything like that on our radar right this minute, or that you've heard about from anything that we look and analyze and follow that looks at possibly interesting?
So I think from our perspective, I mean, the market has obviously been through a big flushing out period. What I'm interested to see is the new narratives that come out, and there's new narratives all the time. So the latest one has been AI. There are not too many fundamental projects that are really positioned well to take, or fundamentally sound projects to take advantage of the AI trend. But if there was, and look, I mean, there are smaller projects that we don't like the team, that they just don't fit our criteria, but have obviously performed really well. I mean, last year we saw gaming have a run. We saw the metaverse.
Go ahead, keep going.
We saw the metaverse and the NFT sector really catch a lot of hot money flowing into it. So that's really what I guess we are looking for.
Sorry.
So that's really what we're waiting to see, is what narratives are going to be strongest for the next bull market. I mean, we've given 3 effectively for what we're looking for in that space.
Did we lose Graham?
Sorry, Larry?
Glenn's talking, but we don't hear him.
Glenn's on mute.
Glenn's on mute, but he's having a good time talking to himself.
Sorry,
Vicky's going to have to do some editing
Larry,
for this episode.
It sounds your office sounds like the center of an ER.
It really. Well, I get a lot of calls for the White House. It comes through here. They said Biden doesn't know whether he's coming or going. So Larry, could you tell us?
So yeah, look, in summary, we'll wait to see what narratives really put their hand up for our attention, and then we'll look to do some research and allocate accordingly within those sectors at the right time.
Beautiful. All right, guys. I think.
Can I add one more thing about Ethereum?
Yeah.
Maybe Nikki can go back and edit this if necessary. But
Yeah.
the other really key thing about Ethereum was the merge update to the blockchain, and that happened towards the end of last year. And what was critical about that update is that the tokenomics of Ethereum moved into essentially a deflationary deflationary mechanisms within the tokenomics. So that's incredibly bullish, because the total supply of Ethereum is now effectively decreasing as time goes on. So, and look, it does vary. So it's not, we can't say yes, it's deflationary, because there's a number of factors that build into that. But if all goes according to how we expect, then we can expect a deflationary nature to the tokenomics, which is very powerful from a price perspective, and is very bullish. Also, again, ahead of the next bull market cycle.
So Graham and Bilal and Glenn, any of you could chime in on this, on the answer to this next question. We've seen, and I've read, from Bitcoin being this year at 42 to Bitcoin being at 300, right? Okay, great. All these great projections, and of course we have our own thoughts. But if we were going to look out 5 years from now, just pure guess, pure fun guess. Give me the Bitcoin price. Give me the Ethereum price. Go ahead, Bilal. Give me two numbers. Bitcoin prediction.
So I mean, in the short term, Bitcoin and Ethereum could be cheaper over the next few weeks and months. But on a 5-year view, I'd say Bitcoin is above $100,000, and Ethereum is above $10,000.
That above, okay, so we got 100, we got 10. So obviously it looks like you're a big believer, more of a believer in the Bitcoin than the Ethereum. Glenn, well, before we get to Glenn, go ahead, Graham. At the end of 5 years, just tell me, what's Bitcoin's price? What's Ethereum's price?
Go to Glenn first and come back to me.
All right, Glenn, Bitcoin, just give me the price of Bitcoin.
But
Price.
Bitcoin 300K.
Okay.
Ethereum between 20 and 30,000.
Okay. Does that help you now, Graham? Somewhere in between, so you can blame one or the other for missing it?
I'll go for Bitcoin at 200,000, and I'd go for Ethereum at $15,000.
Who would have thought that B would have been the most conservative? Wow. Listen, but before we go, Larry, your prediction would really fascinate me. Bitcoin, Larry.
Bitcoin, 250,000 at the end of 5 years.
You should have been a politician, Larry.
Thank you. I am. I'm considering going into politics. I'm going to say Ethereum, 100,000.
Wow. Okay.
So
Yeah.
that means you really do buy in. I mean, Graham's obviously done an incredibly good job on you, Larry, as far as Ethereum's concerned.
Well, here's the thing.
You lock and load Ethereum big time.
Well, here's the thing. Everything that's being developed and built is being done on Ethereum, or unless there's some new Ethereum, right? It can't be done on Bitcoin. And if the world is going to continue to grow with new companies and new coins and new businesses and new opportunities, when the world explodes, it can't explode on top of Bitcoin. So it has to explode on top of another blockchain like Ethereum. So to me, it only makes sense that would and should grow greater than just a plain solid store of value. Okay? And then here, I'll just leave it with this. I should be right if Graham told me the truth. And if Graham just lied to me, then it's not my fault. So if Graham knows what he's talking about, I'm a genius. And if not, I have nothing to do with it.
But to our viewers, now's the time, as they say, to fill your boots.
No, well, here's the bottom line.
No
matter which one of us is right or wrong, an investor today wins no matter what. Okay? I mean, it's as simple as that. I think our worst guess was 5 times your money. And that's in 5 years. In the S&P 500, it's going to take you 6 years to double your money. So, let any investor go figure that out. And I think it's pretty easy to see why you take a little bit of the S&P money and you definitely get involved in this sector, for sure.
I'd agree with that.
All right, gents. I appreciate everybody joining us from South Africa and Mauritius and Fort Lauderdale and you name it. We're good to go.